I still hear the laugh. Not loud. Not even mean in the obvious way. Just sharp enough to cut through a room full of polite smiles and crystal glasses. The kind of laugh that doesn't just embarrass you. It rewrites how everyone in the room sees you in real time. And the worst part? My fiancé heard it too. 3 nights ago, my mother held my engagement ring under the dining room chandelier, tilted it like she was inspecting a clearance item, and said, "Ah, that's it." I wish I could say I said something back. I wish I could tell you I stood up, flipped the table, walked out like the strong, independent woman I pretend to be on my good days. But I didn't. I just sat there, smiling, like I always do. My name is Hannah Carter. I'm 29. I work as an ER nurse in Columbus, Ohio, and I've held strangers together while their worlds fell apart. But when it comes to my own family, I've spent my whole life quietly falling apart in front of them. And that night, something finally cracked. It started like any other celebration. My mom throws, which really means an event where she gets to perform perfection for an audience. White tablecloths, matching plates, wine already poured before guests even sit down. Her country club friends, Diane and Cheryl, lounging like they were judging a cooking show nobody asked for. And me. I walked in wearing the biggest smile I could fake, holding the smallest piece of happiness I'd ever owned. My ring. It wasn't flashy. No giant diamond. No blinding sparkle you could see across a football field. Just a thin white gold band with a deep blue sapphire in the center. Simple. Elegant mine. Or at least it was, until my mom got her hands on it. "Oh my God, let me see," she said the second I stepped into the dining room. No hug. No, I'm happy for you. Just straight for the ring. I should have known right then. But I didn't. I handed it over like an idiot, heart pounding, hoping, actually hoping, for once she'd just be proud of me. She lifted my hand into the light. 3 seconds. That's all it took. Then came the laugh. "This is what he got you," she said, tilting her head like she was confused. I felt my stomach drop. The room went quiet, but not the comfortable kind of quiet. The kind where people are pretending not to hear something they absolutely heard. Then she added, "Your father spent 3 months' salary on my ring." And just like that, I was 12 years old again, standing in our kitchen while she compared my report card to my sister's. Always second, always lacking, always not quite enough. Before I could even react, she turned toward my older sister Ashley. "Sweetie, show her yours again." I swear for a split second, Ashley hesitated. I saw it. That tiny flicker of guilt. But then she held out her hand anyway. Her diamond caught the light instantly. Huge, perfect, blinding. Of course it was. Ashley married a corporate lawyer. Big house, country club membership, Christmas cards that look like magazine covers. She's everything my mom understands. And me. I'm the independent one. Which is just her polite way of saying the one she couldn't control. I slipped my hand under the table, hiding my ring like it suddenly didn't belong in that room. Like I didn't. And here's the part that changed everything. Jake was standing right behind her, my fiancé. He came in through the kitchen door, probably planning to surprise me, maybe kiss my cheek, maybe save me from exactly this kind of moment. Instead, he heard everything. Every word, every comparison, every ounce of disrespect wrapped up in my mom's fake, polite tone. When I looked up and saw him, my chest tightened. Because Jake doesn't do fake. He doesn't laugh things off. He doesn't play family politics. He just sees things for what they are. And reacts. The room froze when he stepped in. Not dramatically. Just subtle tension. The kind you feel before a storm hits. My mom recovered first, of course. She always does. "You made it," she said, flipping the switch into hostess mode like nothing happened. "Come sit, we were just admiring the ring." Admiring, that word almost made me laugh. Jake didn't smile. He didn't joke. He didn't even look at the ring. He looked at her. Calm, steady, quiet, and somehow that was worse. Because there was no confusion in his eyes. He understood exactly what had just happened. He pulled out the chair next to me, and sat down without saying a word. Then his hand found mine under the table. Warm, solid, grounding. Like he was saying, "I got you. Even if you don't got yourself right now." Dinner went on like nothing happened. Because that's what my family does best. We ignore the damage and keep passing the bread. My mom talked about the engagement party she was planning. Without asking me, of course. 80 people, she said proudly. At the Lakeside Club. It's going to be beautiful. I hadn't agreed to any of it. But that's never stopped her before. Ashley chimed in about floral arrangements. Her husband nodded like everything made sense. My dad, silent, like always, just staring at his plate like if he didn't look up, he wouldn't have to choose a side. And Jake, still quiet. But I could feel it, that stillness. That kind of silence that isn't passive, it's deciding something. Something big. When we finally left, I didn't say much. I couldn't. Because if I opened my mouth, I knew I'd either cry or scream. And I wasn't ready to do either. We got into his truck, and for 15 minutes we just drove. No music. No talking. Just the hum of the engine and the weight of everything that had just happened. Then finally, I whispered. I'm sorry. Jake didn't even look at me. Don't apologize for her. That hit harder than anything my mom said, because it forced me to hear it. Out loud. Clear. No excuses. She's always like this. I added quickly, like I needed to defend her. She doesn't mean it. Jake's grip on the wheel tightened slightly. She told your sister to show her ring right after laughing at yours. I swallowed. I know. Silence again. But this time it felt different. He wasn't just processing. He was deciding. We pulled into our apartment complex, and he turned off the engine. Still quiet. Still calm. Then he looked at me. Straight into me. Has she always been like this? And just like that, every memory I'd buried came rushing back. Every comparison. Every comment. Every moment I told myself, it's not that bad. I didn't hesitate this time. Yeah, I said. His jaw flexed slightly. He nodded once. Okay? That was it? Just one word. But something in my chest tightened. Because I knew. Okay. Didn't mean he was letting it go. It meant he wasn't. At all. He stepped out of the truck, walked inside, and hung his keys by the door like everything was normal. But I knew better. I followed him into the kitchen, watching him move calm, steady, controlled. Too controlled. He turned to me after a moment. Tomorrow morning, he said quietly, I'm calling your mom. And that was the moment everything changed. Don't hang up. That was the first thing Jake said when my mom answered the phone the next morning. And just hearing those 3 words from across our tiny kitchen made my stomach twist. Because Jake doesn't start conversations like that. Not unless he already knows exactly how they're going to end. It was barely 8:00 a.m. The sun was just starting to creep through the blinds, casting soft light across the counter. I was sitting on the edge of the couch, coffee untouched in my hands, listening to every word like it might decide the rest of my life. Good morning, Mrs. Carter, Jake said, calm but firm. Do you have a minute? Her voice came through the speaker faintly, but I could still hear the sweetness layered over steel. Of course, sweetheart. What's going on? Sweetheart. She only used that tone when she was performing. Jake didn't waste time. Last night, I heard what you said about Hannah's ring. Silence. 1 second. 3. Then, just like I knew she would, she pivoted. I don't know what you think you heard, she said lightly, almost laughing. It was a joke. Hannah's always been a little sensitive. I felt that hit like a slap. Even now. Even after everything. She still made it about me. Jake didn't react emotionally. That was the thing about him. He doesn't rise to bait. He just stays steady. You held it up, he said evenly. And said, this is what he could afford. Then you asked Ashley to show her ring. Another pause. Longer this time. I could practically hear her recalculating. Then came the shift. The victim move. I have done nothing but welcome you into this family, she said, her voice tightening. And this is how you repay me. Calling me first thing in the morning to accuse me. Jake didn't raise his voice. Didn't interrupt. Just let her finish. Then said, quietly, I'm not accusing you. I'm telling you what I heard. I swear, my heart was pounding so loud. I thought he might hear it through the phone. If Hannah has a problem with me, my mom snapped. She can say it herself. Jake didn't hesitate. She has, he said. For years. You just haven't listened. That landed. I could feel it. The kind of truth that doesn't echo, it sinks. The line went dead. Just like that. No goodbye, no last word, she hung up. Jake stared at his phone for a second before placing it face down on the counter. No victory, no anger, just acceptance, like he already expected that outcome. I sat there frozen. Well, I whispered, that went bad. Jake looked at me. No, he said calmly, that went honest. And I didn't know why, but that made my chest ache more than anything else. Because he was right. 40 minutes later, my phone rang. Mom. Of course. I stared at the screen for a second before answering. I don't know what I expected. Tears, maybe. Or at least some version of an apology. What I got instead, control. You need to handle your fiancé before he destroys this family. No hello. No pause. Just straight into blame. I closed my eyes, taking a breath. Mom, he didn't attack you. He just repeated what you said. He called me at 800 in the morning. Hannah, she snapped. That is not how you speak to your future mother-in-law. Future. Not current. Not family. Just conditional. He gave you a chance to explain. I said carefully. You hung up. Because I will not be disrespected by a carpenter. There it was. That word again. Carpenter. The way she said it. Like it was something dirty, something less. I felt something shift in me. Not break, not collapse, shift. Mom, I said quietly, you laughed at my ring in front of people. I was surprised? She shot back. There's a difference. No, I said, my voice steady now, there isn't. Silence. Then the ultimatum. If he doesn't apologize by Saturday, she said coldly, the engagement party is off. I blinked. I didn't ask you to plan that party. 80 people are already invited. She snapped. You will not humiliate me. And suddenly, it clicked. This wasn't about me. It never was. It was about her. Her image, her reputation. Her perfect little world. I have to go, I said. Hannah. I have to go. I hung up. And for the first time in my entire life, I didn't feel guilty. I felt angry. Not loud, explosive anger. Something quieter. Sharper. The kind that sits in your chest and says enough. Within an hour, the calls started coming in. Ashley first. Mom's really upset, she said immediately. You know how she gets. That phrase. God, I hated that phrase. You know how she gets. Like it excused everything. She laughed at my ring. I said flatly. I know. Ashley sighed. I was there. But can Jake just apologize? Smooth things over. I actually laughed, not because it was funny. Because it was predictable. Why is it always me? I asked. Why am I always the one who has to fix it? Hannah, don't do this. No, really. I cut in. Why? She didn't answer. Because she didn't have one. Then my dad texted. Sweetheart, your mom is upset. If everyone just apologizes, we can move past this. Everyone. That word sat heavy in my chest. Like we all shared the blame equally. Like what happened at that table was just a misunderstanding. Not a pattern. Not years of quiet damage. Then, this one almost made me laugh. My mom's friend Diane texted me. Honey, your mom is just excited about the wedding. Don't let a small misunderstanding ruin everything. Small misunderstanding. Right. I stared at my phone, scrolling through messages that all said the same thing in different ways. Be quiet. Be nice. Be the bigger person. Be the one who bends. Jake walked over, setting a fresh cup of coffee in front of me. He didn't ask what they said. He already knew. I don't want revenge, he said calmly, but they should know the truth. I looked at him. Really looked. And for the first time, I realized something. He wasn't trying to fight my family. He was trying to protect me from them. What are you thinking? I asked. He leaned against the counter. I'm going to write an email. I raised an eyebrow. To everyone. That word hit differently than when my dad used it. Jake explained it simply. No drama, no yelling, just facts. What my mom said. Exactly. The story behind the ring. Why it matters. And one clear boundary: we weren't going to that party. And the wedding. That would be ours, not hers. I sat there, listening, feeling something unfamiliar settle inside me. Not fear. Not anxiety. Relief. Because for the first time, someone wasn't asking me to shrink. They were asking me to stand still. I want to read it before you send it, I said. Of course. He wrote it at the kitchen table. Slow. Careful. every word deliberate. I read it 3 times, waiting to find the anger, the insult, the line that went too far. But it wasn't there. It was calm, clear, unshakable. And then, there was the part about the ring. I looked up at him after reading it. "You never told me all this." He met my eyes. I was saving it for the right moment. My throat tightened. Because suddenly, that little sapphire didn't feel small anymore. It felt heavy, important, alive with something I didn't fully understand yet. "Send it," I whispered. Jake didn't hesitate. He hit send. And just like that, everything changed. Again, we sat in silence afterward. The kind that comes after a storm you know hasn't fully hit yet. I stared at my phone, waiting. Because I knew, this wasn't the end of it, not even close. It was just the beginning. And something deep in my gut told me, my mom wasn't going to let this go quietly. Not this time, not with an audience watching. And definitely not after what Jake just exposed. "Did you really send that email to everyone?" That was the first text that came through. Not from my mom. Not from Ashley. From my dad. And the second I read it, I knew. He hadn't just skimmed it. He'd felt it. I was sitting on the edge of our couch, staring at my phone like it might explode. Jake was out on the balcony, leaning against the railing, giving me space without saying it out loud. "Yeah," I typed back. 3 dots appeared instantly. Disappeared. Came back. Then nothing. That silence. That was new. Because my dad doesn't do silence. He fills it. Smooths it. Patches it over with. Let's all just calm down. But this time, nothing. And somehow that was louder than anything he'd ever said. I didn't have long to process it. Because 10 seconds later, my phone lit up again. "Mom." Of course, I stared at her name. My chest tightened, but this time I didn't hesitate. I answered. "What did you do?" she demanded. No greeting, no pretense, just straight into attack mode. "I didn't do anything," I said evenly. "Jake told the truth? You humiliated me," she snapped. "You sent that disgusting email to your entire family." "It wasn't disgusting," I said. "It was accurate." "Accurate?" She laughed, but it sounded strained. "You call that accurate? You painted me like some kind of monster." I closed my eyes. "No," I said quietly. "You did that yourself." Silence. Sharp. Dangerous. Then her voice dropped into that tone. The one she used when she wanted control back. "You need to fix this." There it was. The command. The expectation. The role I've played my whole life. But something in me didn't move this time. "No," I said. I could actually hear her inhale. Like I'd just spoken a language she didn't recognize. "No," she repeated slowly. "Nope." My heart was pounding now, but my voice stayed steady. "I'm not fixing something I didn't break." "You're choosing him over your family?" she snapped. And just like that, there it was. The oldest weapon in her arsenal. I almost laughed. Because for the first time, I saw it clearly. This wasn't about Jake. It wasn't even about the ring. It was about control. And I had just stepped out of it. "I'm choosing myself?" I said. And that hit harder than anything else I could have said. She hung up, no warning, no last word, just gone. I sat there staring at my phone, my hands shaking slightly. Jake stepped back inside a moment later. "You okay?" I looked up at him, and for the first time in days I nodded. "Yeah," I said softly. "I think I am." But the fallout? Oh, it was just getting started. Within an hour, my phone turned into a war zone. Ashley called first. "Hannah, what the hell?" she whispered, like she was hiding in another room. "Mom is freaking out?" "She should be," I said. "You didn't have to send that email." "I didn't," I replied. "Jake did." "That's worse," she snapped. "He embarrassed her in front of everyone." I felt that familiar pressure. The pull to back down, to smooth things over. But this time, I didn't. "She embarrassed herself," I said calmly. We just stopped pretending it didn't happen. Ashley went quiet, and for a second, I thought maybe she got it. But then, you know how she is. There it was again. That phrase. That excuse. That trap. "No," I said firmly. "I'm done accepting that as an answer." "Hannah." She laughed at me. I cut in front of people. "Compared me to you. Again, and you're asking me to apologize." Another silence. Longer this time. Heavier. I didn't say it was right, Ashley said quietly. But you're still asking me to fix it. She didn't respond. Because she couldn't. Then came the text from my dad. Did she really say all that? About the ring, about the salary? I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back yes. 3 letters, 30 years of truth behind them. He didn't respond. Not right away. And again, that silence felt different. Like something was shifting. Something real. Jake walked over and sat beside me. You don't have to answer everyone, he said gently. I know, I said. But I still looked. Because part of me needed to see it, needed to understand just how deep this went. Then I saw something that made my breath catch. An old message thread. Ashley. From 2 Christmases ago. I'd screenshotted it. I don't even remember why at the time. But now I understood. Mom said Tyler's gift was kind of embarrassing. Please don't tell anyone. I stared at it. My heart pounding. Because suddenly, it wasn't just me. It was never just me. I remembered that Christmas like it was playing on a screen in front of me. Tyler had given Mom this beautiful set of high-end kitchen knives. The kind chefs use. Expensive. Thoughtful. Perfect for someone who lives in the kitchen like she does. She opened it. Paused. Turned one over in her hand. Then said, well, I guess it's the thought that counts. And just like that, she'd ranked it. Compared it. Dismissed it. Right in front of everyone. I remember Tyler's face. That tight smile. That flicker of something hurt. Ashley had squeezed his hand under the table. Don't, she whispered. I didn't think much of it back then. Because I was used to it. Because that's just how she is. But now I saw it clearly. It wasn't random. It wasn't accidental. It was a pattern. A system. She measured everything. Rings. Gifts. Love. And if you didn't meet her invisible standard, you got put in your Jake. She does this to everyone, I said quietly. He nodded. I figured. No. I shook my head. Not like this. Not this consistently. And then something clicked. Ashley wasn't the favorite. She was just the one who played the game better. The one who stayed in line, the one who didn't push back. Collateral damage. Just like Jake. Just like me. I felt something shift again. Deeper this time. Not anger. Not sadness. Clarity. And clarity, that's dangerous. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. A few hours later, my phone buzzed again. Dad. I hesitated before answering. Hey, I said softly. I read the email, he said. His voice sounded tired, not irritated, not defensive, just tired. Okay, I said. Did she really say that? He asked again. Yes. There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing, something ticking in the background. Probably that old clock in the hallway. I need to think, he said finally. And then, he hung up. I just sat there, staring at nothing, because my dad doesn't say that. He doesn't think, he avoids, he smooths, he deflects. But, I need to think. That meant something had cracked, and if he was cracking, then everything was about to change. Jake watched me carefully. What did he say? I swallowed. He didn't defend her. Jake nodded slowly. That matters. Yeah. It did. More than I realized. Because for the first time, someone in my family wasn't asking me to shrink. They were starting to question the space that had always kept me small. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything. The dinner. The call. The email. The silence. And one thought kept circling in my head. This wasn't just a fight. This wasn't just about a ring. This was the beginning of something bigger. Something that had been building for years. Cracks in a system that had always looked perfect from the outside. And now, those cracks were finally showing. And my mom, she wasn't going to let that happen quietly. Not with her reputation on the line. Not with people watching. Not after that email exposed everything. Because if there's one thing I know about her, it's this: she doesn't lose control. She destroys whatever threatens it. And I had a feeling I was about to see just how far she was willing to go. She told everyone you already apologized. That's what Ashley said, and for a second, I thought I heard her wrong. I was standing in my kitchen, staring at my phone like it had just glitched. What? I said slowly. Ashley's voice dropped, almost like she was embarrassed to even repeat it. Mom told people the whole thing was a misunderstanding. and that you and Jake called her and apologized yesterday." I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger. Not shock. Something sharper. Calculated. "She what?" I whispered. "She said everything's fine now." Ashley continued. "That the party's still on and you guys are coming." I looked over at Jake. He was leaning against the counter, arms crossed, already reading my face. He didn't need to hear the words. He knew. "She's lying," I said flatly. "I know," Ashley said quickly. I didn't believe her but, "Hannah, she already told like everyone." And there it was. The real move. Not the insult. Not the denial. The narrative. My mom wasn't trying to fix what happened, she was rewriting it. Publicly, fast, before anyone else could. She added Diane and Cheryl to the family group chat, Ashley said, and a bunch of people from the club. Of course she did. Because for her, this was never just a family issue. It was a performance, and she was making sure she controlled the script. I let out a slow breath. "When's the party?" I asked. "Saturday." 3 days. 3 days until she stood in front of 80 people and pretended nothing ever happened. 3 days until she painted me as the dramatic daughter who overreacted. 3 days until she won. Unless I stopped her. Jake stepped closer. "What are you thinking?" he asked quietly. I looked at him. Really looked, and for the first time, I didn't feel unsure. "We're going," I said. Ashley sucked in a breath. "Hannah, are you serious?" "Yeah," I said calmly. "We're going." "To apologize?" she asked, hopeful. I shook my head slowly. "No." Jake didn't smile. Didn't react, but I saw it. That small shift in his eyes. Respect. Because he knew, this wasn't me folding. This was me choosing the battlefield. "If she keeps it respectful, we'll keep it respectful," I added. "But if she tries anything..." I didn't finish the sentence. I didn't have to. Ashley went quiet, and for once, she didn't argue. Saturday came faster than I expected, and slower than I wanted. I stood in front of my mirror, staring at myself like I was trying to recognize the person looking back. Navy blue dress, simple, clean, no jewelry. Except the ring, the sapphire caught the light as I moved my hand. Deep blue. Calm. Steady. Nothing like the chaos building inside me. Jake stood behind me, adjusting his sleeves. White button down. Dark pants. Nothing flashy. Nothing performative. Just him. "You ready?" he asked. I met his eyes in the mirror. "No," I said honestly. Then I took a breath. "But I'm going anyway." The drive to the country club felt surreal. Like I was heading into something bigger than a party. Bigger than a confrontation. Like I was walking straight into the version of my life I'd been avoiding for years. We pulled into the parking lot. Full. Of course it was. I counted cars without thinking. 60, 70. Maybe more. She really did invite everyone. Jake reached over and squeezed my hand. "We're not going there to win," he said quietly. "We're going so you don't have to hide." I nodded. That was enough. The second we walked in, every head turned. You ever feel that? Like the entire room just knows something's off. That was this. 80 people. All watching, all pretending not to stare. And right at the front of the room, my mom, standing near the podium. Perfect hair. Perfect dress. Perfect smile. Like nothing ever happened. She spotted us instantly. Of course she did. And just like that she moved. Fast. Intercepting us before we could even take 2 steps inside. "Hannah," she said brightly, pulling me into a hug that felt more like a performance than affection. She held it a second too long, then leaned in just enough for only me to hear. "Smile," she whispered. "Don't you dare ruin this." My stomach dropped. But my face, still calm, still controlled, I pulled back slowly. "Hi, Mom." She turned to Jake, flipping the switch again. "Jake, so glad you came," she said, beaming. Come in, come in." He nodded politely. Didn't smile. Didn't play along. And I could see it. That tiny crack in her expression. She noticed. The room buzzed as we walked in, people watching, whispering, trying to piece together the story they'd already been fed. And my mom. Oh, she worked the room like a pro. Introducing Jake over and over. "This is Hannah's fiancé," she'd say. "He builds furniture." Isn't that creative? Creative. That word again. Said like a compliment. Delivered like a downgrade. I watched people's reactions. Some smiled politely. Some looked uncomfortable. Some avoided eye contact altogether. They could feel it, even if they didn't fully understand it. The tension. The imbalance. The quiet judgment hanging in the air. Every time someone asked about the ring, my mom jumped in before I could speak. "It's a sapphire," she'd say quickly. "Very unique choice. Not everyone goes traditional. Not everyone." Translation: not good enough. Jake's hand brushed mine under the table. Steady. Grounding. Reminding me, "You're not alone this time." I scanned the room. Ashley sat across the room with her husband, Mark. She looked uneasy. Watching everything. Processing. My dad stood near the bar, holding a drink he hadn't touched. Avoiding eye contact. Same as always. But something about him felt different. Like he wasn't fully checked out this time. Like he was actually seeing it. Then, at exactly 70 Whitfive, my mom tapped the microphone. And just like that, the room went silent. Showtime. She stepped up to the podium, smiling like she was about to deliver the speech of the year. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," she began, her voice smooth and practiced, "to celebrate my daughter's engagement." Polite applause. Smiles. Nods. And then, the shift. When Hannah told me she was engaged, she paused, tilting her head slightly. I was surprised. There it was, that word, wrapped in sweetness, laced with judgment. The room shifted. People felt it, but she didn't stop. "Love comes in many forms," she continued. "And many budgets." A ripple of awkward laughter. I felt my chest tighten. There it was. Again, public, intentional, calculated. She gestured toward Ashley. I raised my daughters to aim high. Ashley married a man who gave her the world. Ashley froze. Her husband didn't move. "And Hannah." She smiled, looking straight at me. "Found someone who makes things with his hands." The room went still. Not laughing now. Just watching. Because now, it wasn't subtle anymore. It was clear. And she knew it. She lifted her glass. "To Hannah and Jake," she said. "May you build something sturdy." Scattered clinks. Hesitant. Uncertain, then silence. Heavy? Uncomfortable. Real. I looked at Jake. He met my eyes, and gave me the smallest nod. Not pushing. Not forcing. Just, "It's your moment." And for the first time in my life I didn't shrink. I stood up. Slowly. Deliberately. 80 people turned toward me, watching, waiting. And my mom? Her smile froze. Just slightly. "Thank you, Mom," I said calmly. My voice didn't shake. Didn't crack. Didn't betray the storm inside me. I'd like to say something too. And just like that, everything was about to change. Again. Because this time, I wasn't staying quiet. Not for her. Not for anyone. And definitely not for a lie. My mom's right. That's how I started. And you could feel the room shift. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just that subtle tightening of attention when people think they know where something is going. I saw it in their faces. Relief. Oh, okay. She's going to smooth it over. She's going to fix it. She's going to play her part. Just like always. I let that sit for a second. Let them believe it. Then I continued. "She's right." I said again, my voice calm, steady. "This ring isn't traditional." A few nods around the room. My mom's smile started to come back. Small. Cautious, but there. She thought she had me. She thought I was about to validate everything she'd just said. I slowly lifted my left hand. The sapphire caught the chandelier light. Deep blue, quiet, unapologetic. "And it's not 3 carats, I added. Now the room was completely silent. No shifting, no whispering. Just listening. "But what it is," I said, glancing at Jake for half a second, "is 41 years of a marriage that actually lasted." That landed. Hard. You could feel it. Not loud, not explosive, just heavy. Real. I turned slightly, enough so people could see the ring clearly. "This sapphire belonged to Jake's grandmother," I said. "She wore it every single day for over 4 decades. People leaned in. Actually leaned in. Because now, this wasn't about money. This was about meaning. Her husband was a carpenter." I continued. "He couldn't afford a diamond, so he chose this instead, because he said it reminded him of the sky the day they met." I paused. Let that sit. Let it breathe. Let it replace everything my mom had just tried to turn it into, and she kept it, I said softly, "through everything. Kids, hard years, loss, love, all of it." I looked around the room, at the women holding champagne glasses, at the men shifting in their seats, at people who came here expecting a polished engagement party. And we're now watching something real. This ring isn't big, I said. It's not flashy. It won't turn heads across a room. I let my hand fall slightly, but it carries a story I'd choose over anything else. Silence. Different this time. Not uncomfortable. Not awkward. Respectful. Then I added, quietly. And I wouldn't trade it for anything in this room. That's when it happened. From the back of the room, a woman stood up. Older. Elegant. I recognized her vaguely. One of the long-time club members. She raised her glass. To Hannah and Jake, she said clearly, and then added, and to that kind of love. One glass clinked. Then another. Then 10. Then the whole room. It wasn't loud, it wasn't chaotic. It was intentional. People chose it, one by one, and my mom. She lifted her glass last, her hand trembling just slightly. For the first time that night, she wasn't in control. The rest of the party. It ended fast. Too fast, because once something real breaks through a room full of performance, there's nowhere left to hide. People came up to me. Quietly. Individually. I loved what you said. That ring is beautiful. You've got a good man. Not loud enough for my mom to hear, but enough for me to know. They saw it. They saw me, and maybe for the first time in my life, that felt enough. Jake stayed closed the entire time. Not hovering, not guarding, just there. Solid. Unshaken, like he always is. Ashley approached me near the exit. Her eyes were different. Soft, uncertain. I didn't know, she said quietly. I studied her for a second. Yeah, I replied. I don't think you did. She nodded. Didn't argue. Didn't defend Mom. And that was new. But the moment I knew things had really changed came in the hallway. Right outside the main room, my mom cornered me. No audience now. No performance. Just us. Her face was tight, controlled. But I could see it. The cracks underneath. Are you happy? She asked coldly. You just embarrassed me in front of everyone. I didn't flinch. Mom. I said calmly. I didn't mention you once. Her jaw tightened. Everyone knows what that was about. Then maybe what you said was worse than what I said. That hit. I saw it land. Not just emotionally. Logically. Because she couldn't argue with it. Not without admitting what she did. You always do this, she snapped. You twist things. No. I said quietly. I just stopped ignoring them. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again, searching, reaching, grasping for control. You've changed, she said finally. Yeah, I said. I have. Before she could respond, a voice came from behind her. Vivian. My dad. He stood there, hands in his pockets, looking different, distant. Not passive. Present. We need to talk, he said. No anger, no volume. Just certainty. My mom turned toward him, clearly caught off guard. For once, she didn't have the upper hand. Not in that moment. Not in that space. Not in front of him. She grabbed her purse, didn't look at me again, and walked out. Just like that. I stood there, frozen for a second, because something about that moment felt bigger than everything else that had happened. Jake stepped beside me. You okay? He asked. I nodded slowly. Yeah. But my mind was already racing. Because I knew, that wasn't the end. That wasn't closure. That was just the first crack. And cracks. They spread. Later that night, we got home. I kicked off my heels, sank onto the couch, and finally let myself breathe. Jake sat next to me, close enough that our knees touched. Neither of us spoke for a minute. Then I whispered, did I go too far? He didn't hesitate. No. I looked at him. Not even a little. He shook his head. You told the truth, he said. And you didn't attack anyone to do it. I leaned back, exhaling slowly. And for the first time all day I felt something settle. Not peace, not fully, but something close. My phone buzzed. I picked it up. Ashley, I answered. Hey? I said softly. There was a pause. Then, Tyler read the email. That caught my attention. Okay. He hasn't said much, she admitted. But, Hannah, he never doesn't say anything. I sat up slightly. What do you mean? I mean, she hesitated. He's been quiet all night, like thinking quiet. That felt familiar. Too familiar. Do you remember Christmas 2 years ago? She asked suddenly. My grip tightened on the phone. Yeah. The knives, she said. I closed my eyes. I remember. Ashley's voice cracked slightly. Mom told me afterward that if Tyler was a real provider, he would have bought her something she could actually show people. I sat there in silence. Because hearing it out loud changed something. Again, I told him to ignore it, she whispered. I told him not to make it a big deal. I swallowed. And now? I don't think it was small, she said. No, it wasn't. It never was. I thought I was the favorite. Ashley admitted quietly. I didn't say anything, because I knew that realization hurts more than any insult. I thought I was safe, she added. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. You weren't, I said gently. She exhaled shakily. No, I wasn't. Silence stretched between us. Not uncomfortable. Just honest. Tyler wants to meet Jake, she said finally. I blinked. Why? He said. She paused, then continued. He wants to talk to the only person who actually said something. I looked over at Jake. He was watching me. Calm. Unsurprised. Like he already knew this was coming. And that's when I realized. This wasn't just affecting me anymore. It wasn't just my relationship with my mom. This was spreading. Through the whole family. Through every quiet moment that had been ignored. Every comment brushed off. Every truth buried. And now. It was all starting to surface, all at once. And something told me, this was about to get a lot bigger. Because when people finally stop staying quiet, everything changes. Not slowly. Not gently. All at once. Thanks for saying it out loud. That's the first thing Tyler said to Jake. No small talk. No awkward handshake energy. Just straight to it. I wasn't there when they met. But Jake told me everything later that night. Sitting on the edge of our bed, loosening his collar like he'd just walked out of something heavier than a casual beer. They met at this local sports bar off Route 33, the kind of place with sticky tables, too many TVs, and country music playing just a little too loud. Neutral ground, no family, no performance, just two guys who married into the same chaos. Tyler said it again after they sat down. I mean it, he told Jake. I've wanted to say something for 5 years. Jake didn't react much. Just nodded, letting him talk. Because Jake understands something most people don't. When someone's been quiet that long, you don't interrupt when they finally speak. Tyler leaned back in his chair, staring at his beer like it had answers. She told me once, he said, that I was lucky Ashley picked me. Jake raised an eyebrow slightly. Lucky? He asked. Yeah, Tyler scoffed. At brunch. In front of her friends, said it like a joke. Jake didn't laugh. Because it wasn't funny. She's done that a lot. Tyler continued. Little comments, nothing big enough to call out without looking like the bad guy. Jake nodded slowly. I know the type. Tyler let out a dry laugh. Yeah, I figured you did? There was a pause. Then Tyler said something that stuck with me when Jake repeated it later. Loyalty shouldn't mean swallowing disrespect. Simple. But damn it hit. Because that's exactly what we'd all been doing. Ashley, my dad, me, even Tyler, we called it keeping the peace. But it wasn't peace, it was silence. And silence. Silence protects the wrong person. Jake told him that. Calm. Straight. That's not loyalty, he said. That's survival. Tyler didn't argue. Didn't defend it. Just nodded like something finally made sense. They didn't toast to revenge. Didn't talk about winning. They just sat there, two men who finally realized they weren't crazy for noticing the same pattern. And when Jake came home and told me all this, something in me shifted again. Because now, it wasn't just me pushing back. It wasn't just Jake standing up. It was spreading. Ashley started calling me more. Not about mom, not about drama, just talking. Real conversations, the kind we never had growing up because everything was always filtered through comparison. Did mom say anything to you today? She asked one afternoon. Not yet, I said. She's quiet, Ashley admitted. That word surprised me. My mom? Quiet. That didn't happen. She's been upstairs a lot, Ashley added. Like, not calling people, not hosting anything. That was new. Very new. Because my mom doesn't sit still. She fills space, controls rooms, manages narratives. But now, she was gone quiet. And that kind of silence, that wasn't peace, that was pressure, building. Meanwhile, my dad started changing. Subtle at first, but noticeable. Ashley told me he'd been talking more at dinner, actually talking, not just agreeing, not just nodding, sharing stories. Opinions. Things I'd never heard from him before. Like he'd been holding himself back for years, and finally stopped. That one surprised me the most. Because if there's one thing I never expected, it was my dad stepping out of the background. Then came the message that really made everything click. It was a text from Ashley. Tyler told Mom how her comment about the knives made him feel. I stared at it. "Anne?" I typed back. The typing bubble appeared. Paused. "Then," she said, "I'm sorry I said that. It was wrong." I froze. Read it again. Then again, 7 words. No excuses. No but, no. You misunderstood. Just I'm sorry. I felt something weird in my chest. Not relief. Not fully. But, something. Because that was the first real apology I'd ever heard from her. Ever. What? Jake asked, noticing my face. I handed him the phone. He read it. Then looked at me. "Well," he said quietly. "That's a start." A start. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Not a transformation. Not a miracle. Just a crack. And for the first time, it didn't feel like everything was breaking. It felt like something was opening. But not everything was changing. Not yet, because 2 weeks later, reality caught up with her. Not in the house. Not in the family. In her world. The one she actually cared about. The country club, the social circle, the image. Ashley told me what happened. Apparently, one of my mom's closest friends, Diane, pulled her aside after lunch. Nothing dramatic. Nothing loud. Just quiet. Controlled. The way those circles operate. She suggested Mom take a step back from planning the fall gala. Ashley said. I leaned back. "That's not a suggestion," I muttered. Ashley shook her head. "No, it's not. That was their way of saying, we noticed. We didn't like it, and we're not going to say it out loud, but we're stepping back." And, in my mom's world, that kind of distance. That's everything. She didn't get kicked out, didn't get publicly called out, but the invitations slowed. The calls weren't returned as fast. The energy shifted. Subtle, but permanent, because in that world, reputation isn't destroyed loudly. It fades quietly. And for someone like my mom, that's worse. Way worse. I didn't celebrate it, didn't feel satisfied. Because honestly, watching her lose control of that world didn't feel like winning. It just felt sad. But I also didn't feel guilty. Because this wasn't something we did to her. This was something she built. And we just stopped protecting it. One afternoon, about a month after the party, I stopped by my parents' house. Unannounced. Something I never used to do. My dad answered the door. He looked tired. Not broken. Just worn. "Hey kid," he said softly. "Hey." I stepped inside. The house felt different. Quieter. Like the walls themselves were holding their breath. "Mom home?" I asked. He nodded toward the stairs. "Up there." That was it. No explanation. "No, she's resting. Just up there." I grabbed a box of old photos from the hallway closet. Stuff I wanted for the wedding. As I turned to leave, my dad stopped me. "Henna." I paused. "Yeah." He hesitated. Like he was searching for something he didn't usually say. "I'm sorry." I blinked. "What?" "I'm sorry," he repeated. "For not stepping in. All these years." That hit me harder than anything my mom had said. Because my dad, he doesn't apologize. He avoids. He smooths things over. But this was real. I swallowed. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do," he said quietly. And I believed him. Because for once, he wasn't trying to fix it. He was owning it. And that changed something. Not everything, but something. I stepped forward and hugged him. And for the first time in years, he held on, not loosely, not briefly. Actually held on, like he meant it. "I told your mom she needs to apologize to you," he said after a moment. I pulled back slightly, and he exhaled. "She didn't say anything." Of course she didn't. Because for her, silence was still safer than accountability. I nodded slowly. Okay. I didn't push. Didn't ask for more. Because I knew, if it was going to happen, it had to come from her. Not pressure. Not expectation. Her. And as I walked out of that house, one thought stayed with me. Everything was changing. Not dramatically. Not perfectly. But undeniably. And the scariest part We weren't even at the hardest conversation yet. Because sooner or later, my mom was going to have to face me. Not as the daughter who stayed quiet. Not as the one who smoothed things over, but as someone who finally stopped playing the role she wrote for me. And when that happened, there would be no audience, no performance, no escape, just the truth, and I didn't know if she was ready for that, but I knew one thing for sure, this time I was. I'm outside. That's all the text said. No name, no explanation, but I knew. I don't know how. I just did. My chest tightened as I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen like it might change if I waited long enough. It didn't. Jake looked up from the couch. Everything okay? I swallowed. My mom's here? He didn't react dramatically. That's one of the things I love about him. He doesn't escalate energy. He just adjusts to it. You want me to stay? He asked. I thought about it for a second, then shook my head. No, I think this has to be just me. He nodded. No argument, no pressure, just trust. Okay, he said softly. I'll be here. I grabbed my jacket, even though I didn't need it, and stepped outside. The air was cool, that late evening kind of quiet where everything feels suspended, and there she was, standing next to her car. No heels, no perfect dress, no audience, just her. And for the first time in my entire life, she looked unsure. Hi, she said. It sounded strange coming from her. Small, careful. Hi. We stood there for a second, just looking at each other. No script, no roles. Just two people who didn't quite know how to talk without all the usual noise. I didn't want to call, she said finally. I thought you might not pick up. I crossed my arms, not defensive, just steady. Probably not. She nodded slightly, like she expected that. I've been thinking, she added. That word again. Thinking. Funny how it kept showing up lately. What about? I asked. She let out a slow breath. Everything. I didn't respond. Because I needed more than that. I needed specifics. I needed truth, and for once I wasn't going to help her get there. She looked down at her hands. Fidgeting. Another first. I read that email again, she said quietly. Jake's email. The one that started all of this. And, I asked. She hesitated. Then, I sounded cruel. Not defensive, not dismissive, just honest. My chest tightened slightly. Because hearing her say that wasn't something I'd ever expected. You were, I said. She flinched. Not dramatically. Just enough, and I saw it, that instinct to push back, to justify, to regain control. But this time, she didn't. I know, she said. Silence fell between us, but it didn't feel like before. It wasn't tense. It wasn't suffocating. It was real. I didn't realize how often I do that, she admitted. The comments, the comparisons. I tilted my head slightly. You didn't realize? I asked. It wasn't sarcastic. It was genuine. Because I honestly didn't understand how she couldn't see it. I thought. She paused, searching for the right words. I thought I was pushing you to be better. There it was. The justification. But it sounded different now. Less certain. Less sharp. Better for who? I asked quietly. She looked at me. Really looked at me. And for a second, she didn't have an answer. That silence. That was the closest thing to truth she'd given me yet. I grew up in a house where everything was compared, she said finally. Everything. Looks. Money. Status. I listened. Not agreeing, not interrupting, just listening. And I hated it, she added. That surprised me? You hated it? I asked. She nodded. Yeah. I let that sit for a second. Then asked, so why did you do the same thing to me? That question landed hard. She didn't answer right away. Couldn't, because there isn't a clean answer to that. Just patterns. Just repetition. Just damage passed down like it's normal. I don't know, she admitted finally, and for once I believed her. Not because it excused anything, but because it felt real. Unfiltered. I thought if you had more, she continued, you'd be safer. I frowned slightly. Safer. In my world, she said quietly, people don't respect you unless you have something to show. There it was. The core of it. Not love, not values, image, status, proof. And you thought I didn't have that? I asked. She hesitated. Then. I thought you deserved more. I shook my head slowly. No, I said. You thought I needed to be more like Ashley. That one hit. Because it was true. She didn't deny it, didn't argue, just stood there. And that silence, that was her answer. I'm not Ashley, I said softly. I know that, she replied quickly, but you treated me like I was failing for not being her. Her lips pressed together. Tight, controlled. But I could see it. The truth settling in. Uncomfortable, heavy. I didn't mean to make you feel that way, she said. I let out a quiet breath. I know, I said, but you did. Another silence. Longer this time, but not empty. Processing. Real. Then she said the words I'd been waiting for, without even realizing I was waiting for them. I'm sorry, Hannah? Just that, no explanation. No, but, no redirection. Just, I'm sorry. And for a second, I didn't know what to do with it. Because I'd imagined this moment so many times, played it out in my head. But now that it was here, it didn't feel like victory. It felt complicated. I need you to understand something, I said carefully. She nodded. I'm listening. I'm not doing this anymore, I said. The comparisons. The comments. The subtle digs. All of it. She swallowed. Okay. If it happens again, I continued, I will walk away. I won't argue, I won't explain. I'll just be done. That was my boundary. Clear. Simple. Non-negotiable. She nodded slowly. I understand. And I believed her. Not because she was suddenly a different person, but because for the first time, she wasn't trying to control the outcome. She was just accepting it. We stood there for a moment, the air lighter somehow. Not fixed, not perfect, but different. I heard what you said at the party, she added quietly. I raised an eyebrow. You did. She nodded. I didn't realize the ring meant that much. I looked down at my hand. The sapphire caught the light again. Soft, steady. It does, I said. She hesitated. Then. It's beautiful. That one almost broke me. Not because I needed her approval, but because it was the first time she'd said something. Without ranking it, without comparing it, without turning it into something else. Just letting it be. Thank you, I said softly. She glanced toward the apartment building. Jake's in there. She nodded, then surprised me again. I owe him an apology too. I blinked. That was new? Very new. He'd appreciate that, I said. She gave a small nod, then looked back at me. I don't expect everything to be fixed, she said. I know it's going to take time. I exhaled slowly. Yeah, it is. She opened her car door. Paused. Then looked at me one last time. I am proud of you, she said. And just like that, something in my chest shifted. Not healed. Not completely. But moved. Because those were words I'd spent my whole life waiting to hear. And now that I had them, they didn't erase the past, but they changed the present. She got in her car and drove away. No drama. No final speech. Just gone. I stood there for a minute, letting everything settle, then turned and walked back inside. Jake looked up as I entered. How'd it go? I leaned against the door for a second, then said. She apologized. He nodded. Yeah. I smiled slightly. Yeah. He studied my face. Do you believe her? I thought about it. Really thought. Then nodded. I think she means it, I said. He smiled faintly. That's something. Yeah. It was. But as I walked over and sat next to him, I realized something important. An apology doesn't fix everything. It doesn't erase years. It doesn't rebuild trust overnight. But it opens a door. And what happens next? That's where the real work begins. Because now, it wasn't about surviving her anymore. It was about deciding what kind of relationship we were going to have. And for the first time in my life, that choice was mine. I'm not changing the ring. That's what I said the morning of my wedding. And yeah, it sounds small, petty even, but in my family, that sentence carried more weight than vows. I was standing in the bridal suite of this lakeside venue just outside Columbus. The kind of place my mom would have chosen a year ago without even asking me, but she didn't choose this one. I did, and that alone. That was already a quiet revolution. Ashley stood behind me, adjusting the back of my dress, her fingers careful, slower than usual. You know Mom's going to say something, she murmured. I caught her eyes in the mirror. I know, I said, and you're okay with that. I smiled slightly. I'm not here to manage her anymore. Ashley paused. Then nodded. And that was growth. Not dramatic, not loud, but real. Because a few months ago, she would have told me to just keep the peace. Now, she just stood beside me. Jake and I had made one thing clear from the beginning. This wedding wasn't going to be a performance. No over-the-top speeches. No fake smiles. No subtle digs dressed up as compliments. Just us, real, simple, intentional. The guest list was smaller, tighter. People who actually showed up for us. Not just people who needed to be seen showing up. And my mom. She was invited. Of course she was. But this time, she wasn't in charge. When I walked into this ceremony space, the first thing I noticed wasn't the flowers. Or the chairs. Or even Jake. It was her, sitting in the second row. Not front. Second. That was her choice. And somehow, that told me everything. No dramatic entrance. No need to control the room. Just present. Watching. I didn't overthink it. Didn't assign meaning. I just let it be. Because that's what I'd learned. Not everything needs to be analyzed to death. Some things just need space to exist. Then I saw Jake. Standing at the end of the aisle. Same steady posture. Same calm energy. Like he wasn't just waiting for me. He was grounded in something deeper than the moment. And suddenly, everything else faded. The history. The tension. The years of trying to be enough. Gone. It was just him. And me. And a choice. A real one. The ceremony was short. Exactly how we wanted it. No long speeches. No performative vows. Just honest words. I choose you. I said, my voice steady. Not because it's easy. Not because it looks good. But because it's real. Jake smiled. That quiet, knowing smile he always gives when something actually matters. I choose you. He said back. Not instead of yourself, but with you. That line. That one hit. Because that's the difference. Not losing yourself to love. Building something with it. We exchanged rings. And when I slipped that sapphire onto my finger again, it didn't feel like something I had to defend anymore. It felt like something I understood, deeply, fully. Ours. The ceremony ended. Applause, hugs, laughter. Not forced, not staged, just real. And then came the moment I didn't expect to feel anything about, the reception. Because if there was ever a place my mom would have slipped back into old habits, it was here. Crowd. Attention. Opportunity. I kept an eye on her at first, not obsessively. Just aware. She moved through the room differently, quieter, less performative, talking to people sure. But not dominating, not controlling, not rewriting anything. And then, she approached me. My chest tightened slightly, but I didn't brace. I didn't prepare. I just stood there. Hey, she said softly. Hey, she glanced at my ring, paused, and for a split second, I wondered, here it comes. The comment. The comparison. The subtle shift. But instead, it looks perfect on you.
That's a no twist?
No edge. Just a statement. I nodded. Thank you. She hesitated. Then reached into her clutch, pulled out something small, a velvet box. My stomach dropped, because suddenly, I thought, oh no. Not now. Not this. She held it out to me. I wanted to give you this before, she said. I didn't know how. I took it slowly. Opened it. Inside, a ring. Not flashy, not oversized, simple, gold, worn slightly with age. I looked up at her, confused. It was my mother's, she said quietly. That caught me off guard, because she never talked about her mom. Ever. She gave it to me when I got married, she continued. I didn't wear it much, because it didn't fit the image I was trying to build. There it was. Honesty, raw, unfiltered. But I kept it, she added. And I think I finally understand why. I stared at the ring, then back at her. I'm not asking you to wear it, she said quickly. I just wanted you to have it. No pressure. No expectation. Just an offering. And that mattered more than anything. I closed the box gently. Thank you, I said. And I meant it. Not because the ring fixed anything, but because of what it represented. An attempt. A shift. A crack turning into something else. She nodded. Then, almost like she didn't trust herself to stay longer, she stepped back and let the moment end. No control. No performance. Just respect. Later that night, after the music faded and the guests started leaving, Jake and I slipped out to the dock behind the venue. The lake was still. Quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty. It feels full. He wrapped his arm around me, pulling me close. You okay? He asked. I leaned into him. Yeah, I said softly. And for once I didn't feel like I had to explain that answer, because it was simple, honest, real. I was thinking, he said after a moment. That's dangerous, I teased lightly. He smiled. About everything that happened. I nodded. Yeah. And how different this could have gone. He added. I looked down at my hand. At the sapphire. Then back out at the water. Yeah, I said. It could have gone really bad. He tilted his head slightly. But it didn't. I thought about that. All of it. The email, the confrontation, the party, the apology, the boundaries, everything. No, I said quietly, it didn't. And then I added. But not because she changed first. He looked at me. Understanding already forming in his eyes. It changed, I said, because I did. And that was the truth. Not the kind that sounds nice in a speech. The kind you earn. The kind that costs something. Because here's the thing no one tells you. Standing up to the people who raised you doesn't feel powerful at first. It feels terrifying. Like you're breaking something you might not be able to fix. Like you're risking everything for a version of yourself you're not even sure exists yet. But then, if you don't back down, if you hold the line, if you choose yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, something shifts. Not overnight. Not perfectly, but undeniably. People either meet you there, or they don't. And either way, you're no longer stuck in the version of the story they wrote for you. I leaned my head against Jake's shoulder. The water reflecting the last bits of light from the sky. I used to think love meant proving something. I said softly. He tightened his arm around me. And now, I smiled. Now I think it just means choosing what's real, and not apologizing for it. He nodded, like that made perfect sense. Because to him, it always did. I looked down at my hand one more time. At the ring that started everything. The one that was never about size, or price, or status. Just meaning. And I realized something I wish I'd known years ago. The right people in your life won't ask you to shine louder. They'll just stop trying to dim you. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is stop shrinking for people who only know how to measure love in comparisons. Because once you do that, everything changes. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't becoming who my family expected me to be. I was finally becoming someone I didn't have to apologize for.